Welcome to another virtual homeowner meeting. Joined by my colleague, Elizabeth Wheaton, otherwise known as Beta. And we have just a few announcements first. Many of our WeNav team are going to be walking in the 3-mile Walk for Hope in Orleans on Sunday, May 22nd at 1 p.m. This is an annual walk that's sponsored by the nonprofit Housing Assistance for Cape Cod. You all are aware of the extreme circumstances of the lack of permanent housing for people, both on the Cape and the islands. Their goal is to raise $100,000, and there will be walks at the same time in both Falmouth and Hyannis. So if you are so inclined, Carrie has posted the link.
Awesome.
Love to have you join us.
I'm quiet. She's being quiet.
Second of all, Jeff, could you mute everybody? Just second, we've moved our office from Brewster to a new space in Orleans. It's right next to the Chocolate Sparrow, which is great for all of us chocolate and coffee lovers. The Orleans Chamber is helping us promote this move and our new office with a ribbon cutting ceremony and an open house on Sunday, May 29th at 11 a.m. So if you're in the area, stop on by. As promised, we are going to spend about a half an hour answering some of the most common questions that we received from you when you registered. If you have comments or questions along the way, please save them to the very end. Carrie will be monitoring the chat room, so you can ask your questions there, or just wait until the end and we get to the Q&A session. But before we begin with the questions, some of you, or most of you probably, are aware, if you read our recent newsletter that we sent out on Sunday, that we are detecting a softening in the market. At the end of 2020, the first year of the pandemic, we reported that vacationer activity was 3 times what it was in 2019. So the result was that you saw a huge surge in inquiries for your property, and you could have rented your home many times over that summer. And even the shoulder season traffic was off the charts. Then a year ago, we reported that bookings were up 2 times over 2020, setting even new records. We knew that this activity level was unsustainable, and that eventually it would return to a new normal pace. It's still well above pre-pandemic levels, but it's less frenetic and it's worth keeping an eye on. So we had a very strong booking activity for this summer, starting last fall and going straight through January. So many of you are probably in very good shape. But if you're new to our site or you didn't renew until just recently, you may well have availability for the summer. And one thing you need to look at is pricing. While the demand is no longer soaring like it was in the last 2 years, prices have been soaring. The normal price increase over the past 25 years has been about 2 to 3% annually. That's it. But consider what's happened in the last 3 years. The lodging tax in 2019 increased prices by 10 to nearly 15%. Then homeowners increased their rates an average of 6% from 2020 to 2021. And then a whopping 10% from 2021 to 2022. That adds up to nearly 30% for some people in just 3 years. And then when you add record-breaking inflation to that, Vacationers are beginning to take note, and it's going to have an impact. The bottom line is, if you still have availability and are not getting the inquiries you expected, take a hard look at your pricing, take a look at your competition, and react soon. So on that note, let's start with our questions that some of you have been asking. First one is, when should we reduce our rates as we get closer to the summer? That's a very individual thing and decision. If you have a large home, be aware that, of course, bookings occur earlier and begin to wane as we get closer to the summer. Most of the large parties are all set by the time June comes. Smaller homes tend to book much closer to the season, and even at the last minute. So if you want to hold off on lowering your prices and you have a smaller home, you could probably safely do that. Of course, keep in mind that the islands are more challenging, so you want to book as early as possible because of the ferry situation. Some weeks are just more popular than others, as you probably have noticed. And we have a slide that shows the most popular weeks. As you can see, there's the availability for the last 2 weeks of July and the first 2 weeks of August is much lower. And if you take in particular the first week of the last week of June, beginning June 25th, more than 40% availability. And if you look at the last week of August, 55% availability. So more than half of the homes still have that week available. And if that hasn't been the case in the last couple of years, because kids were, during the pandemic, people didn't have as rigid a schedule, but now we're going back to the times when kids are going back to school earlier. And so that is a tough week. And if you're looking at your pricing, that's a good week to reduce, sooner rather than later. Next question. How can I have my listing appear at the top of vacationer search results? The best way, of course, is to have a quality listing. Your listing rating is one of the key determinants in our search sort order. And that rating is based on the quality of your listing, remember, not the quality of your home, but the quality of your listing. And the most important criteria are things like your response time and rate. Do you respond quickly and timely? And do you respond at all? Calendar updated, and guest reviews. If you're new to our site, we do not penalize you for not having any guest reviews, of course. So check out your listing quality audit, and you'll find suggestions for us for improving your listing. Most of them are free, they're easy to implement, and you can get your rating up there. And just keep in mind that vacationers can also still search by price from high to low or low to high, or by calendar when the calendar was last updated. But the default right now is the quality rating. Next slide. Many of you wonder, you ask why a vacationer doesn't include their phone number. We used to require that, but what we found was that more and more people were using their cell phones, and they were reluctant to give out their cell phone number to everyone. So, and then they didn't inquire at all, rather than leave a number. So we decided not to make it mandatory, but many people do. If they don't include their phone number in their initial inquiry, just write back, answer any questions that they ask, and then ask them to have a phone conversation with you. Just, you tell them that you really want to be sure that you can answer all of their questions and that your home is a good fit for them. Of course, you're interested in knowing that they are a good fit for your home as well. And a phone conversation is really the best way to do that. Next. Oops, wrong way. How can we educate our renters about mitigating their impact on the Cape and Islands environment? The first and foremost, the best way is to set an example yourself by having a green home. You will get a special designation on your listing if you have 6 or more of the 8 green amenities that we offer, that we mention in the search. So, or we mention on your listing. So if you go to your link for description and amenities, you will find the 8 amenities right there. And vacationers can actually see a page of our green homes. The other thing you can do is leave detailed instructions for your renters regarding recycling practices and AC use, and if you have a water filtration system where you leave a Brita, or just all of the things that you do to help the impact on the environment, and encourage them to do the same thing. What are some winning marketing ideas for off-season bookings? First thing to consider, if you don't already do it, is reducing the minimum stay to 2 or 3 nights, especially if you have a large home. Large homes are much harder to book in the off-season, but easier if they can book it for just 2 or 3 nights. Just keep in mind that you want to make it profitable enough for yourself to make it worth it. So keep make the daily price higher than it would be if they were staying for a week. You can promote events that are planned during that time. You could add some pictures showing some fall activities, and of course the benefits of the off season with the beautiful weather and the fewer crowds. But be sure to consider your prices. You'll have far more competition for renters in the shoulder season than for the peak summer weeks. A rule of thumb is that the shoulder season rates are usually about 60 to 75% of the summer weeks. That's just in general. So the more aggressive you are in your pricing, the more competition you will have. So it really depends on your incentive and whether you really want to rent in the off season. Some people are just done by, the end of August or beginning of September. And of course, post an owner special to highlight any reduced prices or any special offers. So
I just wanted to add, I know that Carrie is nicely monitoring our chat room, and Carrie, I don't know if you've added that link. We have a good blog post about tips for attracting fall rentals. It's really fall and spring. Gives ideas for just the shoulder season in general. So take a look. I'm going to take over now and ask, try to answer the next few questions. Our maintenance costs, in other words, turnover, cleaning, trash, and recycling, because those are really the main ones, are the same for 3 or 4 night rentals as they are for longer stays, but income is less. Any advice? That's true, right? I mean, if somebody's there one night, for one night, you still have to clean it. The cleaners still have to come in. So there are a few things that you can do, a few suggestions we have. Certainly you can price your home accordingly. We provide you with a daily price range. So what you would do obviously is give sort of a volume discount. The longer they stay, the lower the per diem rate is. But the converse of that is the shorter they stay, it makes it worthwhile to you if they're only there for a night or two. If you really are concerned about booking as many nights as you can in the fall, you want to have your minimum stay as low as possible, but then charge more per diem to make it worthwhile. We've certainly said this before. But the other thing is that a lot of people I've noticed now have been charging, even though they don't charge a separate cleaning fee, you know, an extra cleaning fee in the summer, they may do that now in the fall. So if you have a $100 or $200 cleaning fee, you can eat that all summer long when your rates are higher. But then when you have shoulder season bookings, then you can have to pass those on to your guests. Just keep in mind, as Joan said, there's just so much more competition. There's so many more people who have availability in the shoulder season. So, you know, as Joan says, it just depends on how willing you are to take a risk that your home might end up empty. But we actually hear of stories where people say, you know, I've been able to patch them together, so I have 2 or 3 different 1 or 2 night stays in a week. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's a lot of work. It's not right for all of you. If you're not there, you don't have an easy turnover. Obviously, the larger homes, this doesn't even work. But if you have a small home that doesn't require a lot, you can sometimes patch it together pretty successfully. There's a big demand for quick getaways to the Cape and Islands, so in the spring and fall. We inform prospective guests about our outdoor security cameras. How can we reduce any anxiety they may have about this? Well, first of all, we're just thrilled that they said that they informed them. That's the #1 rule. As we always say, it's all about communication. And in this case, don't be telling them once they've already signed the lease and committed to you, they just will feel uncomfortable. So you just want to be like anything in your home. You want to bring out not negatives, but anything that could be an issue. You want to make sure they're aware of before they even sign the lease. So where are we? So sorry, I can't have my little notes in front of me. The other thing is that security cameras are really pretty common these days, where they didn't used to be. A lot of your guests may have security cameras in their homes, you know, their homes, their own homes. So they may not be as anxious about that as you think. The other thing is that what we recommend is just put a positive spin on it. Yes, these are for you and important for you to have these, especially in the off season when nobody's there, but spin it as this is an added security for them. This is partly to keep their family safe while they're there. So again, all about communication, lots of it and how you do it. Let me go to the next. What are some smart technology solutions that won't break the bank? This is not really my forte, but I'm telling you, I'm becoming a convert. One of the questions is, I think it's coming up, how can you distinguish your house from another house? You know, there's so many options out there now. We have a great blog post that I hope Carrie's going to share with you about what is a smart home. What are the different kinds of options that are out there? There's everything from controlling the climate on your home, you know, monitoring the humidity, the temperature, obviously, so they can't jack up the air conditioning. I mean, that's something that means a lot to me, both from an environmental standpoint and my pocketbook standpoint. But, you know, there's the surveillance cameras, there are smart TVs and streaming services. These are all things that are mentioned in that blog post, and they shouldn't, don't be overwhelmed by them. They're really not, even somebody at my age, it's pretty simple these days. In most cases, it's fairly inexpensive, as this homeowner asked, does it not break the bank? Some of them you can even install yourself. And of course, I think a lot of times the expense comes when you have to hire somebody to install it, right? So some of them you can just, if you're savvy at all, it's apparently, I haven't done it, but apparently they're pretty easy. One of the options that we have talked about in a prior Zoom meeting last year was a blog post we wrote afterwards. Carrie said, do you have a minute? And it's MINUT. It's a great little gizmo that Carrie, maybe if you have more questions, she can answer them after the meeting, but it monitors, it's very simple. It's very inexpensive, apparently. And I think Carrie had one, has used it, and it's really great. So that's just another option. but it is, you know, without spending too much money, it is just another way that you can kind of separate your house, really provide that customer experience that, you know, everybody wants to do for their guests. Did I go too far? No. How can we differentiate ourselves as small property owners from the big properties? I think what this homeowner meant, because obviously our search does that, right? I mean, if somebody's looking for a smaller home, they're going to search for one, and that's what they're going to have returned to them. They're not going to have a whole bunch of large homes returned to them. I think what they mean, though, is just basically how to differentiate yourself from your competition. That is something that all of us, especially now as the market may be, you know, it's still strong, as Joan said, but the super frenzy days are over. So how do you differentiate your home? They're just, first of all, I think, Carrie, you have a blog post there that you're going to mention about ways to set in the newsletter that we just sent out 2 days ago too. We listed a whole number of tips about how you can market your home better and stand out from the competition a little. As Joan mentioned, a lot of them are not, you don't have to pay a lot of money. We do have some features, marketing features, services that we offer that are fee-based, but there's so many things that you can do on your listing to make it stand out and really compete. It's people, vacationers aren't, there is a demand for those fancier homes now. We've all seen how vacationer standards have kind of changed, but there's still a tremendous demand for your basic rental that has the, you know, that's clean and neat and so forth, but doesn't necessarily have granite countertops and a swimming pool or something. So it's all about marketing your home. So don't worry that you don't offer the Taj Mahal. Present your home, market it in a way so that they feel like they're getting the Taj Mahal at a really great rate. And of course, that's the other thing, you know, just as Joan said, be mindful of what your competition is asking. Make sure that you're not offering too much. Don't think I've forgotten anything. Anyway, the last one, any tips on working with our service providers, house cleaners, landscapers, gardeners, electricians, plumbers, etc. First of all, you want to try to obviously be selective and get the best quality providers that you can, interview them, ask for references. I kind of am laughing at myself as I say that, because I know that in this culture, what's going on now, it's difficult to even get people who can help you, that have availability and are willing to do the work. So I know it's not easy. We do have, again, Carrie, I hope we'll post our home services directory, a link to it. So if you haven't seen it before, or if you're looking for any of those services, we don't vet these people ourselves, but we hope that people will post their own reviews about them. But take a look and interview different people, meet with them. If possible, give them really specific directions, set their expectations. So many times problems happen just because the homeowner hasn't really adequately conveyed what their wishes are for cleaning or whatever it might be. Again, it's all about communication. Line them up as early as possible. It's getting late now, probably. If you haven't got your service provider team put together, you know, do it tomorrow. I mean, the sooner you can. And then communicate with them during the season. You know, they're not your clients, they're not your guests, the guests in your home, but these are people, I know you probably feel the same way about them that I do. They're almost like family members. I am so dependent on my cleaner. You know, I love her to pieces. So it's really important that you check in with her, make sure she's doing okay, hasn't any questions, that everything's going okay. Just be empathetic and, you know, let them know that you care, and just treat them well in general. You know, I know you're probably horrified at their prices, but they've had a tough couple of years too, believe me, with the whole pandemic business. So, you know, just whatever way, I know it's difficult financially, but any way that you can to make their life easier. And as I said, even if it's just conveying a sense of empathy and, you know, trying to make their lives easier, it's always helpful. That's the end of our questions. we are happy to open it up now to, I don't know, Carrie, have we gotten, I haven't even looked in the chat room. How's that? Has anybody submitted any questions? We've
Yeah,
thrown a lot at you guys, a lot of quickly, but I mean, very quickly.
we do have a couple questions.
Good.
So Marietta wanted to know about the price difference between having AC and not having AC, and maybe central versus window units, if you can give any ballpark on that.
I mean, I think
Well,
it's impossible to quantify, you know, if you put air, is she asking if you put air conditioning in, can I raise my rates by $250 a week or whatever? It's impossible. It's the best, again, I think to do is to look at your competition and see what homes that have air conditioning are charging versus those who don't. So that will give you some sense.
Yeah, I might add that years ago, air conditioning was considered more of a luxury. It was really not needed and not asked for all that frequently. I mean, people just rented homes without it. These days, it's almost, you know, the opposite, that some people refuse to rent a home without air conditioning, just because the summers are getting hotter. And if people have been used to going to other parts of the country, like New Jersey or Maryland or Delaware, they all have air conditioning and they almost expect it. So if you don't have it, be sure that your vacationers know that. If they are there during an ultra hot week, they're going to complain probably. And they'll just say, well, I know you have fans, but they just blow the hot air around. So, you know, you might, so many houses are difficult to retrofit for AC, but with the new units, the, what are they called?
Mini splits.
The what?
Mini splits.
Mini splits, or, you know, simply window AC units, and especially in the bedroom. People who are vacationers who have a hard time sleeping at night because it's too hot become cranky vacationers.
I always add that it's best for your house too. It really protects, it fights the dampness so much, and that's such an issue for all of us.
Yeah. Beta, could you X out of the open Q&A so that we can see the full screen of faces?
Yep, sure. I was just going to have that, but
pretty faces. Carrie, another question?
Yes, Scott wanted to know about the number of properties we had in 2019 versus 2022, and maybe number of bedrooms with that. And then he's curious to know how many more houses we have now versus pre-pandemic. We have any?
Jeff Talmadge, do you care to answer that question?
I'd be more than happy. I'd have to look at data in the back end to really get the right answer, but the implication of the question was that we had more listings today than we did before the pandemic, and that's not true. The lodging tax and the pandemic both knocked our listing count down from previous years, so we're recovering, but we have fewer homes and fewer availability. That makes the supply demand curve look a little extra crazy, because we all know about the demand from the vacationers, and there is a smaller supply of your homes. I hope that answers the question.
I would just add that it's not just on our site, right, Jeff? I mean, the lodging tax and then the pandemic knocked a lot of homeowners out of the rental business. So it's not like they were flocking off our site. I just wanted to.
No, that's a fair, thank you for clarifying, because I think that's what happened. The market just has changed. And we just heard people say, lodging tax, I've had it, that's enough. It's an excuse to get out of the rental market. And we heard sort of similar things with COVID. Either fear, or then the real estate prices went through the roof, so people were selling their homes. And the new buyers are starting to come back, you know, they've been there a year or so, they're trying to start to come back to think about renting. But the inventory's been a little tight.
Well, as Joan said, prices for vacationers have gone up so high. Aren't you guys blown away by almost 30%? I mean, between the lodging tax and inflation and everything else, it's just crazy. So, why was I saying that?
Well, that's,
Well, some vacationers are reluctant to come to the Cape or the islands. Now, that's not
Oh,
to
right.
say
And
that-
so what I was going to say is, yeah, and then we're hoping they're going to come back to our site because we don't charge any extra like some of
Right.
the other sites. So we are such a better alternative, a more affordable alternative to vacationers. And that's why the vacationer side has just been crazy, right? Our marketing department has just brought in thousands and thousands of new vacationers. So we need to, it's a balancing act now. We need to get more inventory up, so.
Right. So go out there and buy some more homes and put them on our site.
No problem. Homes are cheap now, right?
Carrie?
Okay, we have a question from Carol. Should we, if we lower the price of the remaining weeks that we have still available, should we announce it or just do it without calling attention to it?
That was better than my trying to write surreptitiously, which I couldn't spell.
It depends, Carol. If you have just a couple of weeks available, you should shout it from the rooftops. I mean, put an owner special on saying, that it's been reduced. Of course, if it's within a month of the availability, you can post a last minute alert as well. But at this point in time, you could just state that the remaining couple of weeks have been reduced. If, on the other hand, some people decide after they've tried unsuccessfully to rent their home at a very high price, and then they decide to reduce all of the weeks and they have quite a few left, I wouldn't announce that because that was really a mistake in the establishment of the initial price, in my mind. And so that person would be just back down to a more realistic price to begin with. So I wouldn't make that a feature.
Okay, I'd had a nice talk with you earlier and you thought that our prices were a little low. And I can't, tell you that first month or so, it was every day, a couple of people, they bought in, nobody questioned anything. Unlike other years when everybody's saying, well,
Yeah.
if I don't bring my dog, can I have, so it was wonderful, but it fell off like a brick off a cliff. And I understand from what you're saying that that's what's happened. So I have the last 3 weeks of August without anything. So
Yeah.
thanks.
You're welcome. Carrie?
That's all we have in the chat for now.
Well, would anybody like to, we have plenty of time left. Just raise your hand and you can unmute and ask a question. Richard?
Yeah, well, it's not really a question. This is the first year I've used this listing service, and I've been renting my house for 14 years, I guess, 13, 14 years on the Vineyard. And the rentals have been falling off gradually as people decide to look elsewhere or need a bigger house. But this has been a godsend to me. I filled my schedule, and I'm really, really happy with the service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Congratulations. That's awesome. I bet you have a great house.
It's a great little house. Yeah, it is.
After we hang up, I'm going to go look.
Bill, how are you? Another
Good.
Vineyard.
Hi there,
Yeah.
old friends.
Yep.
I was just going to share, my attitude towards pricing. It's like hearing that, the inventory is down and demand has been really high. It sounds like a setup for, jacking up your prices. And I think it's probably partly laziness, but every year I have this, grandiose idea that I'm going to sort of reboot the whole project and restage my home and blow out everybody from last year and present myself in a whole new way with a whole new rate card. And then it just gets, I mean, A, I don't want to blow out the people I really like. And B, it's always hard to move from a number that you gave them last year to some really dramatically higher number. So that's always a limitation.
Mhm.
But I guess, the bottom line is that I'm sort of at the bottom range of, of my product category. And I think that's one of my failings in terms of running the business. But, in terms of finding your pricing sweet spot, so to speak, it seems to me you can kind of push it as high as you think you can go and then have no calls, no inquiries, and so finding that is really a tricky business. And I'm sure you guys have addressed this many times in terms of, it really is subjective. It really has a whole lot of factors involved in it. But I guess, it's sort of like a one house test market, I keep looking for like data that says, okay, well, if you do this, you get that, and there's a limit to how much data you guys can accumulate and a limit to how useful that will be to me in my specific circumstances. But I'm putting out there the sort of like price frustration. It's like, you get into this routine and I filled up the whole summer and I've got half of June and half of September. And I'm really happy with, we need a vacation. I mean, you guys just do it for me. I don't have to worry about it going anywhere else and fighting all these big companies. So it's like, if it works, don't fix it. But I sort of feel like I'm shortchanging myself in terms of how much money I can make. So I'll
You
take a
must have
break.
you must have raised your prices some in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
some,
Yeah.
not enough.
Scott, did you want to respond to that or do you have another question? Scott?
You're muted, Scott.
Sorry about that. Actually, both Elizabeth. So Bill, I've been doing this for, I think I'm in my 16th year now. And I have some really, really high quality repeat clients that I love and I don't want to lose, right? So what I've been doing over the past probably 3 or 4 years. So for example, last year I added central air conditioning and I used to have window units. That was an expensive investment. And so what I've been doing is raising the rates on the new people and not raising the rates on the old people. So when the new people become old people, they're at a higher rate if they repeat in the future. And I've found, so I'm probably at about 50-50 repeat versus new. So, while I didn't get a huge bump, I probably pulled in an extra grand or two from, sorry about that.
Yeah, I think that Scott has very sound reasoning there. We treat our repeat renters like gold. I mean, they know our house, they like it. We know that they're going to take care of it. And if you do increase your rates, you can always go to those repeat renters and say, I am going to be increasing the rates, but for you as a valued repeat renter, I won't raise it this year. Or you could come up a little bit. It depends on how much you raise it. And then give them a certain amount of time to respond. And then on your calendar, just post the new prices. But at least your repeats will be aware of the fact that you would like them to come back and at the old rate. And then, you can increase them perhaps the next year. You just don't want to, surprise your valued guests from the past with a big increase. I mean, everyone expects somewhat of an increase, and it's everything increases in price. But what we saw, what were really very high, significant increases. You know, for a $3,000 house, we saw people increasing their rates by $500, $600. For a, you know, $6,000 home, we saw increases of almost $1,000. So, you know, that's really extreme. And certainly not everyone did it, but we were seeing many cases of that. And that's really what we were talking about when we talked about the sudden rise of increases in prices in the last couple of years.
I just wanted to add that if you list your home in the fall, which we always encourage people to do, and given particularly the last few years, if you look at the rates of booking people the last couple of years book really early all through the fall and in January. So if you do that, why not ask your most aggressive price then and see how it goes. You're testing the waters. If you're getting lots of views and you're not getting any inquiries from that, or just one or two, no bookings, that's a sign that if your listing is in good shape, that's a sign that you're asking too much. You've still then got plenty of time, as long as you don't have a really large home, to then bring it down, and you can always add an owner special or something. So as long as you just don't put it up high and then forget about it, and then, oh my gosh, it's too late and you can't fill it, I think it's okay to be aggressive. Just do it early enough in the season that you can readjust.
Marietta? You're muted.
I have a question directed towards that matter of the vacancies at the end of August, the last 3 weeks of August. Do you think there could be any effect on the market that's our hurricane season, and that there's a reluctance for people to come that time of year? You know, last summer we did have a horrible, I think it was in July actually, but remember that hurricane that came on
Yeah.
a Saturday? Like, that was a horrible thing. But I was just wondering if there is any purpose or any benefit to mention that, you know, my house is equipped for emergency. We have a generator, or we have flashlights, or we
Yeah.
have provisions in case there's unexpected
Mhm.
weather.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, well, it's a good question, Marietta, but I've never heard any vacationer mention a reluctance on their part because of the threat of weather. They sometimes are reluctant to book in the spring because they know that New England is notorious for sometimes not having a spring. But they come in the fall. No one that I know of has mentioned that they're afraid of hurricanes. I think it's really more about the fact that schools are starting up, and if anybody has a family with young kids, school-age kids, they simply do not want to vacation at the end of August. I think that is really the number one reason why the demand is down and the inventory is way up.
I think you got to be a little careful too if you start talking about flashlights and hurricane lamp. You don't want to scare people off. Oh, come to the Cape and risk a hurricane or something.
But out in the world, there's everything is a mention of the disasters. Everything is in terms of tornadoes and bad storms. I mean, it's almost like a daily occurrence.
So that's a really good point. And I think the difference is, are you marketing your home before you get the bookings to that you provide that? I don't think so. But boy, if that isn't part of that customer experience we're always talking about, reassuring them, whether we hear of a hurricane, the one I'm remembering never happened. There was all this hullabaloo about it, and it didn't actually hit hard. So I'm just saying that it doesn't matter whether it hits or not. We all, as homeowners, from the minute they sign the lease, it's our duty to make them feel really excited about coming to our home and really safe. And just, if there is something, don't worry, we've got it covered. We do this, that, and the other, or your cancellation policy too. You can, of course, that's a whole nother thing, but you can make that more attractive to them because you have a lax cancellation policy.
Well, like if it's an act of God and habitability. One of the things that we learned during the hurricane preparation was that flashlights are passe because somebody has to hold them. If you're going to be setting your house up for safety for during a storm, those lanterns that sit on a table are much better situation, and they can have
Good point.
you can get the solar powered ones so you can recharge them.
Mhm.
You don't have the issue of batteries.
Yeah,
That's
good
a great
idea.
idea.
Yeah. You could,
The well-stocked home, I mean, all of us should have that. We used to talk about
Yes.
candles, but they're kind of dangerous, but something like
Candles
that.
are way dangerous. You
Yeah.
shouldn't do that at all, but the
yeah,
the
yeah.
table lantern, yeah.
yeah.
Solar
Doug.
lanterns, yeah.
Doug in his workshop.
Hi, Doug.
You're
Unmute.
muted.
We can't hear you.
You're muted.
There we go. Okay. All of a
There you
sudden, I
are.
realized I had it set for today to get on here and I got late. Anyway, the thing is I'm so glad to be on. And, you know, for us, I think it is a little bit less than 2021 from booking standpoint. We're booked July and August completely. We have the beginning of September. We have a little bit in June and a little bit in May. But usually, like last year was like golden, wasn't it? It was totally golden.
Yeah.
We were totally booked. But I have one more question for everybody here. And in 2020, I changed housekeepers. And it wasn't because of COVID. It was because the housekeeper I had wanted to do something else. So I got another housekeeper through your website, actually. Somebody was one of your people who was recommended.
Yeah.
And it ended up now this year, this is what she wants, $350 a cleaning. That's a cleaning plus a garbage removal plus laundry. Is that high?
Well, how large is your house?
Well, the house is we have 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a dining room, a great room, and 3
Yeah.
bathrooms.
Well,
Well-
what was it before too?
175.
With laundry? With the
No,
linen?
not with laundry.
Okay, well, you had me with the linens because that makes all the difference. I don't think 350 is too high if they are going to be doing the linens. And
They take it out, they
most-
take it to a laundromat,
Yeah,
and the
most,
husband of the housekeeper takes the garbage out.
yeah. Well, most turnover cleaners do not want anything to do with the linens. And so you have to go off and find somebody else to do that. So I think to combine them, to be lucky enough to find someone who will do all of that, it's probably worth it, Doug.
Okay, great.
Or
That's
maybe
fine.
you can ask for a breakdown. If you're able to do something, make some other arrangements for your linens, maybe you could ask how much it would be just for cleaning and trash.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
it's
know,
hard to
yeah.
find, hard to
That's
find
a
somebody.
big difference. That laundry
Well,
is just time.
it's 50, part of that, the $50 of that is for their husband to come over there, take the trash out of the garage after a week or even 2 weeks
Yeah,
and take it to the dump,
yeah.
which
Well,
I think is pretty fair.
I
I
think
think
you've got
that's
a
heavy too.
pretty good deal there.
I think-
Scott,
Trash
Just
pickup
to-
on the island is $25 a pickup, so.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
thanks, Doug.
just
Scott?
to share with you, Doug, you know, I am doing a new house, and I am
Right.
now going to be doing linen services where I wasn't doing linen services at the previous.
Mhm.
And my cleaning lady is charging me $100 more just for the linen service than what she
Ooh.
charges me at the other house. And I
Mhm.
also pay Nauset Disposal to remove my gas or remove my recycling and my trash. And
Right.
that's what, 25-ish per each tub. So 25 for garbage, 25 for recycling. So there's $50.
Mhm.
So doesn't sound that bad,
Yeah,
That's true. Thank you.
especially if they do a good job cleaning.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on to them.
Yep.
good.
Anybody else? Wow, quiet group.
Oh, hey, if you want me to talk, I can talk, you know that.
We can always count on you, Doug.
Is there?
I wonder
anyone-
if any of you are surprised about the softening of the market. It sounds like some of you, Carol, you mentioned some of you have seen this yourself. If you're not fully booked, you had maybe had a lot booked early. Doug, that sounds like you too. And
Yes,
now
dropped off.
it's dropped off. Well, we're still
There
getting
aren't-
pretty
there aren't
high
any- What are you
volume.
asking? Pardon?
Jim couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, but Jeff, didn't he say the inquiries are slower, but they're not even back to pre-pandemic levels, right? It's not dead, is what I'm getting at. There's still tons of interest, demand.
Well, I may ask, how are people
Good.
doing in June? Because June can be a beautiful month
Yeah, but it can be awful.
and it can be awful too.
Yeah,
How are people doing in June? Because we had last year, we filled June completely,
Yeah.
right? But in previous years was only like spotty, and
Yeah.
now it's also spotty.
well, last June was still pandemic time and people were still anxious to get away. They didn't care when it was. So
Yeah.
we're going back to more of the time when June you'll get spotty, inquiries and bookings for, I mean, sometimes you get lucky and if your price is really low, you could rent all of June, but it's not a given anymore. Again, with families, kids are still in school, or if they're out of school, mid-June or so, they go to camp for a couple of weeks, people just aren't ready to take their week's vacation then. Or not enough of them anyway.
Some good responses in the chat room about if people want to look and see what other people are just answering your question. So it's interesting to see. Sounds like people are having similar.
Yeah, and don't forget during the pandemic, there were many people who were looking for longer term bookings. They wanted to come for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
So that
So it
ate
didn't
up
take
all
many.
the.
Yeah, it didn't take many to fill up your calendar. But
Remember, I
now-
had a 5-week rental in June, starting in June into July.
And now people are starting to go back to taking, during winter break, they're going to Disney
Right.
or, taking other shorter vacations, and then maybe they'll only take one vacation in one week vacation to the Cape in the summer. So they're now, they have other options, and things are
Jim
opening
mentioned
up
earlier
again.
today, right, Joan, when we met with him, he said, people can now, a couple can book a trip to Italy for a week, including airfare for $1,500, and it's a lot more than that usually. Maybe not a lot more, but it's probably a fair amount more to go to the Cape for a week.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Well,
mean,
I'm
maybe
look-
it'll even out. I can hear Jeff saying that, with it's supply and demand and, but those of us who aren't paying attention and think that, oh, I hear things are crazy. So, and jacked up the prices, if they don't wake up, then I'm afraid they're going to be left with some availability this year, especially in the non-popular weeks,
Yeah.
either of the summer or in the shoulder season.
Right, yeah.
I've
I know
noticed.
we
in
sound
some of
like
the-
Debbie Downers, but it's not all bad. I mean, things are still, the vacationer traffic is still strong. We have to emphasize that. It's just not the feeding frenzy that it was for the last 2 years.
Can I just remind everybody this fact that just blows me away all the time is that the second busiest month of the year over year, is July. So after only January, the busiest month in terms of inquiries or bookings, Jeff, I guess it's inquiries
Both.
maybe, but they're relative. They're probably the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
July,
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people do things early, but there's always those last minute people. So if you've got things available, read the newsletter that we wrote that went out 2 days ago, talks about all those tips about how to fill up those vacancies, whether they're prime time or off season. Get them filled.
Well,
I just noticed on the chat that Donald Critchfield
yeah,
said we have booked all of June.
Well, good for
So
you.
people are
John.
doing it, John. Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's great.
and maybe he did it early, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was,
So,
maybe he charged 10 cents. Who knows?
no, I think
Got it.
he just has a great house. Yeah. Marietta, did you want to say one last thing?
Yes, I was going to comment on what happens in July and that idea of an explanation for why there could be a lot of activity on the website in July. That's when people are actually here, and it could be that they are going back to the website to double check the other houses that they looked at. Now they're here. Maybe they're going to drive by them. Just kind of they're double checking their
For the next year.
decision that they made, thinking
Yeah.
ahead of next year. And
It's
so even
possible.
though
That could
things
have-
are booked
yeah.
and not available, it's
Right.
that fact that they are present here.
Yeah.
That-
Well, yeah, that can account for some of them, Marietta, but they are, for the most part, these are vacationers who are looking for a vacation last minute for the rest of July, one of the last weeks of July or
Yeah.
August. So they're just, oh, we forgot to plan our vacation. Let's do it now.
Yeah, that's true because it's
Yeah.
followed up by bookings.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what I think then the explanation then is that people are risk adverse. And we're living in a world, we don't forget about just the pandemic, but just people's health and people's money. I think it's kind of fun right now because this is IRS day, basically. And I always think there's a lot of inquiries after people have paid their IRS bill, and then they know how much money they can anticipate having in order to allocate, budget it towards a vacation.
Yeah.
So, but just that idea that people don't like to do things too far in advance in this life right now.
You're right.
There's such uncertainty. I mean, there's natural disasters, World War III, all of that kind of, and people's personal health disasters. They don't want to jinx it. They don't want to tempt the fates. Boy, if I book ahead, this will be the year my husband has the heart attack, that kind of stuff. That's very real human caution.
Yeah,
That's
good
true. What
point.
happened the last couple of years, though, is the inventory was so reduced that
Yeah.
those people who are usually like that got burned. They didn't get,
Yeah.
or they may have found something, but it wasn't walk to beach or on the
Exactly.
water like they were used
Right.
to.
Mm.
But their peace of mind in the meantime had a value to them. So
Yeah.
you can't underestimate that.
Sure.
We've
sure.
seen
Good point.
this phenomenon's been true for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's basically the early birds and the procrastinators is how we've always looked at it.
Yeah.
And by procrastinators, we don't necessarily mean just, oh my God, it's summer, a vacation. It's, there's some of that, just people wait till the last minute, but also their plans clarify, their kids' camps are clear now. I mean, it isn't all doom and gloom. It's just natural waiting for things to sift out.
It
But
could
in
just
any
be
case, it's
caution.
always been fascinating to us that the two busiest months
Yeah.
for inquiries and revenue, frankly, are January and July.
So it's the planners and the cautious people, the people
Yeah.
that plan ahead and the people that live by the seat of their pants.
Yep,
Yep.
it's human
Yeah.
nature.
Human
Yeah.
nature. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've reached the end of the hour. If we haven't answered the question that you posed, we couldn't get to all of them. Please don't hesitate to contact us. You can email or call. I'm going to be reaching out personally to some who asked questions that I thought might be more pertinent to just them and perhaps not as interesting to other people, but I do want to get back to everybody. Jeff, did you want to say something?
Before we leave, first of all, just thank you so much for coming. We love doing these and hearing what's on your mind, but I have a question for you. So I'm going to do something I've never done before. Jim does them with his hands tied behind his back. I'm going to run a poll, and it has to do with the last meeting we had when we had Maggie Downey here from Cape Light Compact. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to answer the poll. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Are you seeing a poll?
Yes, have you called Cape Light Compact for a home energy audit? Here come the answers.
They're the
Just
mass
one.
save, people on the Vineyard and Cape. If you're on Nantucket, pardon, you could have called the Nantucket version of this too. Basically mass save for an energy audit. Need more
That's
time?
it? Just one question?
Yep. So the answers so far are 42% have. That's great. You're our
Yeah.
heroes. Almost 60% have not. I would, if you didn't come to last month's Zoom meeting where we did have the head of the Cape Light Compact here speaking to us, you might want to look at that video. But simplistically, the bottom line is there is a lot of money out there that the government will give to you or to help you reduce your carbon footprint. This is all part of the climate roadmap bill that Biden did, but also Governor Baker passed a year ago. And the state has kind of a new sense of urgency about the climate crisis. And there's money out there to help you with mini splits, generators, LED light bulbs, all sorts of stuff. So all you have to do is call the Cape Light Compact. They'll come for free. They'll do an audit of your house for free. They'll write you a report for free that gives you all sorts of suggestions and how you might take advantage of these incentives. And while they're there, you can ask them all the questions you want if you're not sure what a mini split is or what kind of mini split or whatever, because a lot of the stuff's confusing. You just ask these engineers who are being paid to do this. And we've done it a couple times and it's fabulous. So I just would, good for you for those who did it, and urge the rest of you to give them a call. Okay.
Doesn't that include
End of my commercial.
upgrading your air conditioning?
Certainly does.
Isn't that an example of something that you can maybe get help with?
There are all sorts of things you can upgrade. Yep. Right.
Pretty
Refrigerators, stoves, a lot of stuff. I didn't want to get into a long conversation, but would just urge you to call them. There's money out there for you. You can save your own energy bills and help save the planet while you're at it.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. That's fantastic. Thank you. I missed that video. I missed that complete thing. Is that still on the We Need a Vacation website?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Carrie,
Great.
could you throw that link in there? Carrie put a link in for the Cape Light Compact, which again is the Vineyard and Cape place to go. Carrie, there's also on the link that she's going to post about the blog post that she wrote with the video embedded in it. There is a link at the bottom of that page to the Nantucket mass save equivalent. I honestly forget the name, but Nantucket went off on its own on this. I don't know quite why, which is fine. Mass save is a Massachusetts wide thing, and certain segments of the geography have kind of subcommittees, if you will, to help that particular region. So that's all we're talking about here.
And if you miss any of the recordings, they are on our website, Doug. So after this one, I believe everybody who attended, everybody who registered will receive an email with the recording of this one. And on that page are recordings of all our other ones too.
Yeah,
Or just email us if you missed it.
An example of the rebates are for mini splits, you can get up to $10,000 rebates on mini splits. If you go geothermal, rebates up to $15,000. So I mean, the government's pretty serious. They're throwing big bucks at this. Check it out.
Okay, we'll be in touch and let you know when our next Zoom meeting is. You'll
Elizabeth,
get an
before-
invitation.
I'm just
Scott?
curious. I literally just put mini splits in. Do you know if that money can be retroactive? or
I
did
think
you-
Sorry,
it can.
Scott.
I think it can. Go after it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, when did you do it?
Last
Recently.
month. Last month.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
for you.
Give them a call and ask them how to do it. Yeah, there have been many splits have been mentioned several times or a couple times in the comments, and all very positively. It's basically an alternative way to heat and cool your house that's very energy efficient. and very inexpensive to run relatively. Of course, there's an installation cost, and that's where the money from the government can really help. So you have to look at kind of the life cycle costs. If you get those rebates and you save so much a year, you know, what's the payoff period? It'll probably take a few years to pay off like anything, but it will pay off, and you'll be in the black in X years, where I don't dare tell you what X is. It's probably an individual thing.
Well, thank you very much for everyone for attending,
Yeah, it was a great
and
group.
we'll see you at the next meeting.